One of the most popular uses for Typinator is providing date and time output. Now, this abbreviation here, XDT, is going to dynamically print out the date in the format specified here. Pretty clever. In our scratchpad, I'll type, and there is our date. So great when you're renaming files or adding comments to project documentation. Don't look for the calendar to find the date, just type it instead. Now let's build this abbreviation and expansion ourselves so that we can see how that magic works. And let's add the current time to the printout as well. So I'll create a new abbreviation, this time by pressing Command and N. This one is going to be XDTS. Now you may think to yourselves, hang on, the abbreviation for a date stamp there is XDT. Is that not going to expand instead when you try and type XDTS? Well, that's not going to happen because these abbreviations require a word break before they will expand. So they're safe and we've got no warning there. Next, we need to type in our expansion. And for that, we're going to come over here and click on Smart Element. And this takes Typinator to another level because we've got a lot of categories of dynamic or smart content that we can add. We've got some date and time elements at the top. We can simulate keystrokes, create input fields, run scripts, and more below that. And we're going to be touching on all of these in our videos. But first, I want to come to year, and you can choose how you want the year to be displayed. Will it be 2 digits or 4? So I want 4. Now, as Typinator is going to expand exactly what we type in here, I need a character to split the year from the month, and I use a dash. Then I'll click on Smart Element again, come to month, and I've got 4 options for the month this time. I want the 2-digit one here, then another dash. And then finally, of course, we want the day. Well, here there is loads of choice, but again, I just want this 2-digit one. So that's the date, but now we want the time on the end. So I'm going to press space, come back to Smart Element, and then down to time. So everything we need is under here, and I want the hour in the 24-hour clock format. Then I'm going to put in a colon before coming back and getting the minute there. So there is our date and timestamp. Does it work? Well, let's see. I'll key in the abbreviation. And of course it works. Typinator just works. If you ever want to change any of the elements in here, you don't need to delete them and then re-add them through the Smart Elements menu. You can click on, say, the year here. Then we have a blue button that appears. So click on this. And it gives you some useful quick options to change to. And if doing that still felt like one click too many, just click on one of the curly brackets around the element instead. And this saves you clicking on that blue button because we're taken straight there. Now, when you're working with the date and time, you're not restricted to the time zone that you're currently in. Typinator can help you print out the time in other zones quickly and easily. I'm going to create a new abbreviation here. But as a lot of the information that I need for it is already in this one, I'm going to save a bit of time by right-clicking and selecting Duplicate. Of course, I've got a warning because there are 2 expansions now with the same abbreviation, so I'll change this. And this is going to be X John DTS because I want to know the time zone where my colleague John lives. Now, to configure this expansion, I'll click at the beginning here, come to Smart Element once more, and then down here, I'll click on Time Zone. All I have to do now is choose the time zone that I want. So John is in Australia, and he lives in Adelaide. Now I'll click OK. And we can see there the syntax if I was to just type that in. As it's highlighted, if I wanted to change this time zone, I could click on this button and find myself a different one from here. But I'm good. This is what I want, so let's run it. I'll type in X John DTS, and it tells me that it's 9 minutes past 3 in the morning at the moment in Adelaide. And it's good having the date there still because I can see that's tomorrow. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the 5th of February as I record this. So just printing that out is okay, but it doesn't have much context at the moment. So what I've done here is after the time zone is set to Adelaide time, I've added some text in there with the date and timestamp after. Now, when I run that same abbreviation, we can see that makes a little bit more sense. And it gives me an idea now as to how we can really make good use of this. So what we have here is a new abbreviation, and the expansion down here lists all of the offices that I might connect with during the day and their associated time zones. So if I'm ever unsure what time it is in those offices, I can simply type in my new abbreviation. I don't need to think about it anymore. Using Typinator expansions to print out time zones can be extremely useful. Using Typinator to print out the current date, time, or both, either here or elsewhere in the world, can be pretty powerful, but it doesn't stop there. Typinator can also perform calculations on the current date and time. Let me show you. I'm going to create an expansion here that is going to tell me what the date is 14 days from now. So next time I'm in a meeting and someone says, "What date is it in 2 weeks' time?" I can tell them quickly and really look like I've got my stuff together. So for this to work, I need a smart element, of course, and we're going to look at date and time calculation. So we can work out the deltas in years, months, days, hours, minutes, and seconds, as well as set a different date or time as the reference point to calculate from. Well, for 14 days time, we're going to need days here, and our element is in. We can see that the amount of days highlighted is in blue. It's plus 1 day at the moment. So I can use the keyboard to put the correct figure in here. I want plus 14. Now at the moment it says I'm going to add 14 days, but there's nothing printed here at the minute to be able to say how it's going to be displayed. Well, now there is. Let's see if it works. Today is the 5th of February. I'll type in my abbreviation, and of course it works. Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a set in Typinator that just contains these calculations and have the numbers 1 through 28 perhaps in there, so that no matter what the ask is, you can always look like a ninja when someone asks for a date calculation. This date calculation is great when you're talking about today, but what about if you want to perform the calculation on a different date? Well, I'm going to move the cursor over here, then come over to Smart Element, Date Time Calculation again, and come down to Set Reference Date. And we can see the format is in there. It's year, then month, then date. So I'm going to set this as the 1st of July 2026. And this means when I run this abbreviation now, it calculates 14 days from that reference date, which is, of course, the 15th of July. Setting a reference date within your expansion can be really powerful when you're using more detailed ones like this simple go live plan here. This plan here, I've put in formatted text because I want to bold those key dates. And at the top, I've put in the reference date as being the 1st of July. And you'll see there's a new character at the end there. That is a non-expanding line break. And what this does is it looks like I've pressed return because I can see the line that says testing started is below. But when the expansion runs, it's not going to press return. So testing started is still going to be at the top. It makes things a lot easier to read when you have a long expansion. And you get to this character by coming over to Smart Element and then down here near the bottom. You can also press Option and Return to get it. Okay, back in now. So that date calculation that is taking place for testing started is 28 days before the reference date. Then testing finished is going to be 21 days before. We've got a teaser campaign launch that's 14 days before. And then the release sign off, that's going to be a week ahead of time. Then in bold here, you can see I have the go live date being equal to the reference date. So no calculation needed. And in fact, ref date there is now being used as a variable. I've then got some actions for after the go live date. So support tickets need to be clear 14 days after, and a lessons learned meeting will take place 21 days after. And then we have the final sign off. And that is going to be 28 days after our original reference date. So let's see this one in action. I'll type in the abbreviation. It expands. We can see all of those dates are exactly what I want. I didn't have to work them out. Typinator did it for me. Now, the beauty of this is I now have a template. I could duplicate this, or when I have another similar launch, I could just change the reference date in here. And now, if we test that, we can see we've got the new dates. So don't underestimate the power of reference dates when it comes to planning templates and similar types of documentation. They can save you a lot of time. Typinator can also make the completion of forms quick and easy. As long as you can navigate through them with the use of keys like the tab key, it's easy to set up. And we're going to set up an expansion now that fills in our name, our address, phone number, and email address with just a few keys. Okay, I've started this off. So our abbreviation is going to be XMeForm, and I filled in the name at the top there, Thomas Brown. Now, if I was filling out this form in person, I'd be pressing the tab key to go to the next field. So that is what I need to simulate here. For this, I'll go to Smart Element, and then down here to Key. So this is where you're going to simulate a keystroke. If you press Tab, you can see that puts the tab key in. If you're executing a more detailed script and you need to simulate two keys being pressed together, like Command and C or Command and V, you can see you can. I'm going to stick with Tab though, because that's what we need. And you'll also see that you can repeat this rather than have multiple actions set up if you need to press a key more than once. Then, when you're happy, click OK, and we can see the Tab key is there. Now, to make this easier to read, I am going to put in another non-expanding line break here. Because if I was to press the return key, then Typinator would press return after it pressed tab, and that would break what we're trying to do. But the non-expanding line break makes this tidier for me. Now next, I would type in my address. However, this address may not be permanent. What if I was to move in the future? Then if I had any expansions in Typinator that reference my address, well, they'd all have to be changed. So no, we're going to future-proof this expansion by making it reference a different abbreviation within Typinator that has my address in. I'm going to do the same for my phone number and my email address as well. I don't need to worry about the name because that shouldn't really change. I'll come back to the form item here, and if I click on Smart Element, I'll come down here to Control, where we can select Expand Other Abbreviation. So the abbreviation text is highlighted in blue, so I'll delete and then key in the abbreviation I want it to type. Easy. Then I need to add in another tab key, so I'll do that. And it isn't long before you have a completed expansion here, ready to try out on the next form that you need to complete that, of course, has name, address, phone number, and email address in that order. So here we are. Let's give it a try. When I click on the name, of course, macOS is prompting me to fill in the name automatically. But when I key in my expansion, everything there filled in, and incredibly quickly as well. A real time saver. Now, as your skills with Typinator start to develop, you'll begin to realize the potential of allowing it to access your clipboard contents and then paste into your expansions. Let me show you a very simple example. I'm going to start this expansion with the word hello. Then if I come to Smart Element, down here to Clipboard, we've got two options. So the first, and the one that I use most often, tells Typinator to insert a plain text representation of your current clipboard contents, whereas Paste Clipboard is used to insert pictures, formatted text, and other types of data within the target document. I just want the plain text version here, and get used to that because you're going to be using it a lot. I'll throw in a bit more text here. And you can see we've now got a very simple email template. So this works really easily. Let's say I have 3 people to email. Well, I'll take the first name here and then press Command and C to copy it to my clipboard. And now in Mail, when I type the abbreviation, it takes that clipboard entry and pastes it into the greeting. Really simple example there. But when you start to build this out, you can create some pretty powerful automations by adding the clipboard into your expansions. Another powerful element you can use to place dynamic content into your expansions is an input field. Now this expansion here is all well and good as long as you have the recipient's name on your clipboard. But sometimes it's going to be more convenient for you to be prompted for their name so that you can type it in and potentially more information as well. That's where input fields come in. I'm going to delete this clip element here, come over to Smart Element and then down to Input Field. Now, there are various different input fields that can be selected. For this example, I just want a simple text one. I need to give it a label, and a label is kind of like your prompt to remind you what's going to be going in here. So I'll just put name. If you want to have a default value that goes in there until you delete or change it, then you can check here. And if you need multiple lines, you can use these arrows to change the number there. You can also assign this to a variable, something that does come up a little bit later. But for now, I'll click OK. And let's see how this looks. So I'll key in my abbreviation. And you can see we now have a window open there. So my label says name. It's very clear what I need to type in. It's the name of the applicant. And there is our email. Johnny's name is in there. And I can now rinse and repeat this as I send the responses out. We want to be more detailed than that though. So let's build this out a little bit further and look at some of the other bits that can be put in. So we'll start this from the beginning and build out. The first input field I want, we're actually going to put in a heading. Now this doesn't appear on the text that is going to be expanded, but it does appear in the window that we're going to see. And it tells us what this expansion does. It's for our own information and almost like a title. Next, I'm going to put in one of our non-expanding line breaks to make this more readable. And then I'm going to have another input field. This time, I'm going to put in a description. And again, it's similar to the heading. It's for our own information. Then we need another non-expanding line break, followed by the greeting. And I just added the same text field there that we saw before. Let's put in some text. So thanks for applying for the role of. So what are they applying for? Well, we're hiring for 4 different positions in this example. So I would quite like a choice of roles presented to me. That means that the input field we're going to want this time is alternatives. Now it gets interesting. So we need a label. So this label is going to be which role did they apply for? And then we put our choices down here. So there's 2 by default, first and second. We're going to click on first and replace this with data analyst. Then second, this one's going to be a receptionist. To add more, I need to click on plus. Then this third one will be a SQL developer. And then we'll have a fourth. And this is an office manager. You can check here for an extended text result. And if you do this, Typinator would insert that text when this alternative is chosen. If it's unchecked, then the alternative's title is going to be displayed instead. And you can as well allow free text to be entered. And this turns the pop-up menu into a bit of a combo box where you can choose one of the alternatives, but you've got a free text option as well. And you can also select a default value or assign this to a variable. This all looks good to me, so I'm going to click OK. Right, we've got some more text in there, and I have a line that says, if you haven't been contacted for interview by, and I'd quite like another drop-down list of options to appear here. So those are already there. I'll add them in. Then just a little bit more text to close that paragraph off. Down here, we're going to be adding another input field type. This is going to be a separator line. Now, again, this is not seen on the output, similar to the heading and the description, but it does keep quite lengthy forms organized and segmented, and it can look pretty good. Then we're going to close this off by looking at a final input field option. And this is going to be option. So when we have our form to fill in, we're going to see this label, retain information on system. And we can say either yes or no to this. If we respond yes, then the text in this box will be expanded. As per your request, we will retain your information on our system should other positions become available. But if it's a no, well, what I'll do is I'll just copy this text, pop it into here, and then place the word not in there. So 2 clear options, and then you can click this drop down to choose the default one. Is it going to be yes, no, or the last choice made? Almost done. Now we should complete this with a signature of some description, and for that, we're going to come down here to expand other abbreviation. And that way, if this signature ever changes, I don't need to change this particular expansion. So let's see how this now looks. I'm going to type in my abbreviation, and there is our form to complete. We've got a heading, there's a description. The name is the last text that I typed, so I'm going to change this to Elaine. Then I can click this drop down to choose the role they applied for. Then here to select the closing date. That separator line is there. And I've got the checkbox below. So do they want their information retained if there is another vacancy in the future? I'm going to say yes. And there we are, our completed email. And that saved a lot of time. I do want to make a small change though. I'd quite like these options that I chose to be bolded so that it's easier for both me and the recipient to see. And it helps just ensure that they're correct. So here in Typinator, I'm going to click this drop down so that I can turn this into formatted text. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to bold anything. And then I'm going to select this text here. I'm going to press Command and B to bold. I'll just do that for this other one. And there we are. That should look better. Now I'm just going to run this again. You'll see that it's remembered all of these options from the last time this was run. So I'll press return and there. I'm sure you can see the power that potentially sits behind these input fields and how they can improve both yours and your team's efficiency. Time to look now at one of the more daunting bits for people, but we will try to simplify it as much as possible. Variables can transform static text snippets into smart dynamic content that adapts to current dates, user input and system information, and they're really easy to set up. We're going to demonstrate them in a brand new expansion here. So I'll add in the first variable by coming down to variable here and then selecting insert variable. We can see it's currently highlighted in blue. So I'm going to give this one a name and it's going to be launch day and then a value afterwards, which is 1st of July, 2026. Okay, let's add a non-expanding line break and pop another variable in here. So this one is going to be the launch location. And then I'll just add an address in there. I've added another one in there for a special guest that will be attending. And then I don't need to go to the Smart Element menu here. I can just type in the syntax for the final variable there. It's easy enough. So with all those in and combined with the non-expanding line breaks, I can start actually typing out the text I want to be displayed after expansion. So here is the key information for the launch of the new product. Then down here, I can start referencing my variables. So date, then type in the name of the variable between a set of curly brackets there, then press return. I'll do the location next, and then the launch location variable. The special guest is going to be the launch guest variable. And then finally, we have the early bird offer. See how easy this is to build? I'll just add a closing sentence in here. And then I'm going to insert a quick, simple signature. So I'll expand another abbreviation. This one is going to be the XWBR one there. Okay, I think we're good. So here is the email that we're going to send to our marketing agency with the launch information. All I need to do here is type in my abbreviation. And the variables have been read and they're printed out in situ there. Now let's build on this because variables that are contained in one expansion can be called from another. So we've got our launch information and I'm now going to create an email to send to a VIP inviting them to the launch event. But all of the information relating to that launch event we can see is in this item here. So let's get this written up. I've started with a simple greeting and an input field that is going to prompt for their name. And it says that we're thrilled to tell them we have a launch event on. And then we need to call the variable that is in the other expansion. So nothing new that we need to do here. Just insert the variable as normal and type in the correct variable name you want to reference. And then continue typing. So we're holding it at our new premises. And we need to specify that. So I'm just going to type in the variable here between the curly brackets. And we're thrilled to announce that we have procured the services of. And then here we need the variable for our special guest. And we're so impressed with who this is, we're going to put it in bold so it doesn't get missed. And with a little bit of tweaking and editing, you can have a nice looking email with dynamic variables in there. So if the launch date ever changes, all I have to do is modify the source variable and then any other expansions that reference it are going to have the correct value. Okay, let's test it out. I'm going to type in the abbreviation. I need to enter the name of our VIP. It's Andy, so I'll press return. And we can see all of those variables have been called. The dynamic content there is 100% accurate. Okay, let's build on our variable knowledge by assigning them to some input fields. And this gives you some real flexibility with how you can leverage them. So I'm going to recreate our application response item here from the ground up to show you how it works. So here I've got a simple greeting. The syntax there for the name is the input field. So I can click on this or select it and then click on this blue button here. The label is there, but I need to click down here on assign to variable. And then I'm going to call this variable applicant. Very simple. Now, when you're building more complex expansions that include variables of different types, it is good practice to have the different variables all listed at the top. Then you call those variables within the expansion text. So for that, I'm just going to actually copy all of this and then paste it at the top. And then I'm going to add in a non-expanding line break with option and return, and then just bring those lines together. Now I'm going to pause and I'm just going to add in some more input field variables at the top there. And here is how the whole expansion looks. So there's a lot of detail, but it's split into two dedicated sections. At the top here, we can see the 4 variables. We've got applicant, we have role, which is going to show the role that is being applied for. We have closing date, which is the final date responses will be sent for the roles. And then finally, details, which shows whether or not their data will be kept on the system. All of these are input fields and they are called at various points through the expansion. So here is applicant in these 2 positions. We have role being called out here. Closing date called in these 2 places. And then finally, we have details, which is here. I've also at the end just thrown in a link to another abbreviation that we have that puts in a small signature at the end. Let's see if this works. Over here in mail, I'll type in the abbreviation. There are my input fields, all linked to variables. So if I click OK, we can see they have all taken. There is the applicant name. There's the role. We have the closing dates, as well as the retention details there. Very easy to link your variables to input fields in Typinator. Let's do another example, and this time we'll use variables together to make calculations. Like before, I'm going to list the variables at the top, and we're going to input them via an input field. So I'll do the first one through the Smart Element menu here. The label is going to be, how many did we sell? And I'm going to assign this to a variable again, and this variable is going to be called count. Let's add that. And then on the end, I'm going to put in a non-expanding line break with option and return. I've added another one below that, this time asking for the price that the items sold for. And for our calculation, we're going to come to our Smart Element menu and come down to calculation. It's a very simple syntax that I need. I need the value that comes from the count variable, and I need that multiplied by the value of the price one. And this is going to subsequently become its own variable, and I'm going to call this total. And we can see how that appears there. So I've got a couple more calculations that I want to make, but this time I'm just going to type them in now that I can see the syntax that I need printed above. So this one here, I want the net total. This means I have to multiply the total money taken by 0.8 in this country because we pay 20% VAT. And then below that, we have a variable called tax. And this calculation is, of course, the total money taken with the net total or money taken after tax taken off. Now, with all of these listed at the top, typing out my expansion is easy. And there it is. So the count variable is called out here. We've got the price one here, and then we have total, net total, and finally tax, with those last 3 coming as calculations. So let's see if that works. I'll type in my abbreviation. So how many items? Let's say 50, and they sold for £14 each. There is our expanded text. We've got the count, price, total, net total, and tax amounts all clearly listed there. So variables add a lot of functionality to your expansions, but calculations within them takes it to another level entirely. Now, you may have noticed that when it comes to typing out smart elements, they almost all start with one of those curly brackets. But what happens when you actually want to have one typed out in your expansion? Well, you can see here, we've got a comment line in that says the comment won't be seen. If we come to smart element, and then down here to literal braces, We can see a pair of literal braces there, or curly brackets, with a period after the first one and before the last one. So any text that you type in the middle here should appear alongside the brackets. Is that going to be the case? Yes, it is. So if you want to show those brackets in your expansion, type them as normal and then carefully position some periods so that Typinator knows that you want them printed. Typinator has a section here in the Smart Element menu that can perform some impressive automation on your text that can save you some valuable time. They're contained underneath built-in functions here, and they can take text that you either define in the expansion or have in your clipboard and completely transform it. You can see there are lots of functions available, and we're going to take a look at a few in this video. Let's start with a simple one, uppercase. So our expansion is added and the word text is highlighted, and anything typed in here is going to be presented in uppercase. So I'll just put in something simple here to show the mechanics. Then switch across to text edit, type in that abbreviation, and the text is transformed into all uppercase. Now that shows how it works, but why might you want this and when would you find it useful? Well, if we remove the text from here, you can add in perhaps your clipboard content, or this could be a variable name. So one of the variables that you have in another expansion, or this one. So let's test the clipboard one. I'm going to switch to text edit. We've got a sentence here advising us to ensure the system is backed up before processing the upgrade. Well, that's important, so I need to shout it. I'm going to cut it to my clipboard, type in X upper, and it's expanded out in capitals. So there are lots of text transformation options available within built-in functions, and there's even more scope for using them. Let's take a look at another example. So we can see some text here that has some capital letters all over the place. It needs cleaning up. We can use a built-in function to do that. So I'll add it to my clipboard, come across to Typinator, press Command and N for a new abbreviation, and this one is going to be XCAP. I'll come over to Smart Element and then down to built-in functions. And this time I'll select capital, and this should rewrite the text, putting all of it in lowercase apart from the first letter in each word. That is going to be capitalized. Great for article titles. So I'll remove this text here, replace it with the clipboard contents, and that should do the trick. So I've got that sentence on my clipboard. So here in text edit, I should just be able to type in XCAP, and we've got our corrected sentence, which I can now copy and put into the title of my article. We can go further too and replace certain words or characters in documents with Typinator. Now, not all applications offer a find and replace function, so you can use this almost anywhere, and it can be pretty powerful. Let's take this simple example. The word Wi-Fi in this document is all lowercase. It's not correct. I'm going to use a Typinator expansion to make this text good. So we're going to create a new abbreviation. I'll call it X Wi-Fi. And then in here, we need to add another built-in function. So this one is in the section down here called replace. Now the text we can see there looks a little bit involved, but it really isn't. It starts with a / and then the word replace. So that's the function. Then we have a space and another /. And this is where we're going to type the original word. After that, we've got another / and we type in what we would like the replacement text to be. And then after 2 /, we either type in the text or reference something else, like the clipboard or a variable. So original, this is Wi-Fi, all lowercase. Then I'm going to replace it with Wi-Fi spelt the correct way. And at the end, this is going to be my clipboard. So it's going to take a look at my clipboard content, find the original, replace it with the corrected text, and then print it out. Well, that's the plan anyway. Let's see. I'm going to select all of this text here, press Command and X to cut it to the clipboard, and then type in X Wi-Fi. And now we have a nice cleaned up document with the correct spellings. And if you find yourself often having to correct lots of misspellings, why not have a list of them in one expansion so that you can target multiple issues at once? That's a great idea. In fact, let's work with a version of that now. Here we have a document with lots of numbers in there, between 1 and 4. And ideally, I don't want numbers. My company likes to have the words spelled out instead. Well, I can create a Typinator abbreviation and expansion to address this. So let's create that now. The abbreviation is going to be X1 to 4, although you may want to build one that replaces 0 to 9 all at once. And you'll see now how easy that is to do. In fact, I'm going to type this element out. I don't need to click on it in the Smart Element menu. We've got the start here, and the first number, or original, is the number 1. Then we'll have a /, and I'm going to replace it with the word 1. Now I just need one more /, and I can put in another original piece of text. So it's going to be the number 2, and that's going to be followed by the word 2. Then we'll do 3, followed by the word 3, and 4, followed by the word 4. And you can see if I wanted more, I would just continue this pattern. But this is going to do, so I'm going to finish by putting in 2 /, and then I'm going to put in the clipboard element there. And this gets closed off with a / and a final bracket on the end. And that should be all I need to replace those numbers. So let's see. I'm going to take all of this text and place it on my clipboard, type in my abbreviation, and it's cleaned up. All the numbers have gone. And as it was a plain text expansion, it's retained the formatting of the original document as well. Now, I did say that not all applications have a find and replace function built in. So what if you could build your own? Well, by combining input fields with the replace built-in function, you can. Here we have a document with the word colour spelt in a different dialect, and I want this switched to British English. Now, if I don't have an expansion set up to change the word colour specifically, then having one that asks me what I want to replace is definitely a great option. So let's go and build that. It's going to be simply called xReplace. And then down here, I'm going to start the syntax off as normal. But when it comes to the original word, I want to be prompted. So I'm going to click on Smart Element, then come down to Input Field. The label is just going to be original, and that is done. Now a /, and I need to do exactly the same again. However, this one is going to be, of course, the replacement. So easy. Then what is it going to apply to? Well, this is going to be to my clipboard again. Okay, does our custom find and replace tool work? I'm going to select and cut this text, type in my abbreviation. All right, so far so good. Well, I want the word colour without a U and replace it with the word colour with a U. And it's done. So no matter the app, as long as Typinator can read the contents of your clipboard and paste to the application, you can always find and replace text with ease. Now, what if you would like to automatically export this set whenever you make a change to it? And then perhaps others can access that set, say members of your team that need access to a common set of abbreviations. Well, if you select automatic publishing here, you'll see the top field there does exactly that. I'll click select here. I'm going to name this file. This is going to be shared CSR. I'll choose this, my shared Typinator sets folder, and click publish. The path is in, and the file has a ty pubset extension telling us this is a writable file. So let's test that. So in here, I'm just going to duplicate this item because that means that the set has changed. And just clear this warning. Now, if I come into Finder, I can see the export that we did a minute ago, but there now is the automatic update. Now that was at 9:54, and my watch has just rolled over to 9:55. So let's come in and just make another small change here. I'll switch back to Finder, and sure enough, there is our new update. If you want to share sets and give people read-only access so that they can subscribe to it, you can place your shared file in a location that's accessible via a URL. For example, a Dropbox link. And if you place the set in a folder and link to the item here, they can subscribe to it. Down here, you can define how often subscriptions to this set will update. So the default is a day. And you can also stop automatic publishing of your set here. And you'll see if I Come back in. The fields there are now empty. Typinator is able to tap into the power of Apple Intelligence and work with your text to make improvements and rewrite where necessary. Here we have an email that I'm going to turn into a template of sorts, but the wording needs sorting out first. So I can click on the Apple Intelligence button, and our options for proofreading, rewriting in various tones, or summarizing are all here. I'm just going to proofread this one first of all. And after a short time, we can see it's recommending 15 changes to the text. I can click the arrows to scroll through and work through them. If I click here, it rewinds the changes and shows me the original text. Then clicking again will show me the revisions once more. And if I click revert, it just puts it back to how it was. Then to rewrite the text, I'll click on Apple Intelligence and rewrite. It doesn't take too long. I've now got a better representation of the text, and there's enough there to start formatting and putting in input fields and start building a template out of this. If I wanted to be a little bit more specific in the changes that I wanted, I can click on the Apple Intelligence button again. And then in the field at the top, just type in a prompt that tells it exactly what I want to see. And after a brief pause, it gives me the output, and I can accept or click this button to rerun that prompt and give me another option. It's great to work with as a starting point for building email messages and templates that you will then start to manipulate with smart elements and start building some great dynamic messages. Typinator has got some powerful automations and functions built in, but it can also run scripts for you inline too. And this takes the possibilities to another level entirely. Here I've got a document on time travel that's littered with errors, and it needs proofreading and perhaps a small rewrite. I want an AI service to do this for me, and I just want to type in an abbreviation to kick that process off. And with inline scripts, you can do just that. So this is a very simple script that opens a ChatGPT window within Safari and types in the prompt that you can see here. It's quite simple. And then, as long as I have the text on my clipboard that I want to proof, I can paste it in and away I go. But we need to get this script into Typinator first. So I'll press Command and A and then copy it to my clipboard. And here you can see I've already started setting this up. The abbreviation is xproof. And for the expansion, I'll click on Smart Element and select Inline Script. There's a simple script already in there, which we're going to replace, but I want to click on this drop down and just show you the different scripts that you can embed. So we've got Apple script, we've got JavaScript, there's Shell script, Perl, PHP, we've got Python, Ruby, and Swift. So you're kind of covered. I'm going to keep Apple script and then just delete the text that's there and paste in our new script. Then I'll click OK. Okay, let's see if it works. I'm going to get all of this text onto my clipboard, then type in my prompt, and we can see Safari opens on the ChatGPT page. And that's not me typing or fast forwarding, that's Typinator running the script, which is typing out the prompt for me. I'll paste in the text, and I'm done. Now, of course, I could modify the script even further, perhaps to automatically paste the text, or prompt me to choose an AI service, or even ask me to choose a prompt to execute. There's some great options available to you. Using Typinator to run scripts can be done for a variety of reasons, but it doesn't have to be text-based. Here I have another fairly simple script that, when run, is going to ask me for a project name. And when I type in that project name, it's going to create a folder with that name and then 4 subfolders. And it's great for setting up projects, and I can fire it off with just a few keys. So let's get this onto the clipboard and then switch over to Typinator. My new abbreviation is here, so I'm going to click on Smart Element, come down to Inline Script, and then just paste in my script. Now for this example, I don't necessarily want to type the abbreviation into a document. What I want to do is fire off my application launcher of choice, such as Alfred or Raycast, and then just enter the abbreviation in there. Well, if I come to Settings, in Expansion, I can do exactly that. We have checkboxes here to enable abbreviations to be typed into Launchbar, Alfred, and Raycast. I've got Alfred here because that's my tool of choice. And now I've got nothing on the desktop, and I quite fancy creating those project folders. So I'll invoke Alfred, type in my abbreviation. There's my window asking for the project name. So I'll call it Product A. And there is my folder on the desktop. And if I go in, we can see the subfolders have been created. So if you have ad hoc scripts that you just want to fire off whenever you wish with a keystroke, Typinator makes that incredibly easy.